What never fails to make you tear up or cry? My late partner passed away from leukemia at 38 years old. He hid a letter for me in our room in case he didn't make it. It's the most beautiful and eloquent thing I've ever read. He talks about regretting not being able to see my hair turn grey. Or seeing me accomplish my dreams. He gives me permission to fall in love again. Be messy. And move forward. The level of support is so encouraging. It's also a heartbreaking read and I've only read it 3 times. I will read it again on the 2-year date of his passing at the end of this month. One particular patient I had working in a trauma center. 19-year-old girl I'd never seen before. And didn't know at all. She was ejected from a vehicle and then crushed because her boyfriend was trying to show off. I was training new staff. And they were at the end of their training, so I was only in the room to provide supervision and step in if necessary, and I spent the entire trauma holding her hand, on her request, and trying to comfort her and keep her mind off of the injuries to both of her legs. Her last words were spoken directly to me. "This really hurts. Can I go to sleep?" I cried for days after. I've never had a patient's death hit me as hard before or after. Edit. All of your comments and kind words mean so much. Thinking about my dog's last day. She was 17 years old and her organs were shutting down. Before we took her to get put down, she was in the backyard eating her food. She walked slowly to us while wagging her tail and we took her. When we got home to bury her, I looked over at her dog bowl and there was still a bit of food in it. Kills me every time I think of it. Apparently reading through this thread. Cripes. Child abuse statements. The ending monologue of movie The Shawshank Redemption. I find I'm so excited I can barely sit still or hold a thought in my head. I think it's the excitement only a free man can feel. A free man at the start of a long journey whose conclusion is uncertain. I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope. My dad passed very traumatically from a house fire. He kept running back in the house to make sure everyone else was getting out okay. And he was struck and burned by debris. He spent 5 days unconscious in the ICU before his heart failed. He had a small YouTube channel where he would mostly record engines he was working on. And when I miss him a lot, I go to those videos and cry every time. The scene in Pay It Forward with all the endless line of cars coming to pay their respects to Trevor. The funeral scene in My Girl. His glasses. Where are his glasses? He can't see without his glasses. When Joyo finds his mother in Jojo Rabbit and the scene immediately after when he goes home. Also when the Colonel shoves him away to save him at the almost end. That's all I can think of right now. Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis. Was supposed to be the song my sister and her fiancé danced to at her wedding. Instead it was played walking into the church. At his funeral. After he took his own life. My poor sis was so strong that day. Thinking about how poorly I treated my dad when he was still alive. He was always trying to find things in common with me to connect with me. When I found out he liked something I also liked, I just changed my mind and found it uncool. I looked down on the TV shows he liked and didn't realize until later that he had an awesome taste for quality campy television like The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. and other classics from that era of 90s syndicated television. If I knew him now, he'd be my best friend. I did try to connect with him in the last few years of his life, but he had dementia by then and couldn't follow things I knew he would have found interesting before. His last words to me were "it hurts" while I held his hand during catheterization on his last trip to the hospital. I was too embarrassed from seeing his penis to offer any true comfort. My dad's last words to me were, "You should call more." For him to admit that he wanted that. The end of Homeward Bound. Especially when Shadow says, "Peter, you're okay." Like, they went through all of that and almost died multiple times and Shadow was just glad to know Peter was okay. Gets me every time. Schindler's List. I could have got more. Hachiko. Strategically placed albums from my youth. If I am half drunk and someone begins to play the album Four Cornered Night by Jets to Brazil, I will become uncharacteristically nostalgic. And then openly sob at the idea of how good I was at being 18 years old. Versus how shitty I am at being 38 years old. Getting old is weird. The scene in My Girl when she is at Macaulay Culkin's funeral. You are my sunshine. My only sunshine. Thinking of that abandoned little kitten I found. I called him Mortimer. Tried to keep him alive. Bottle feeding him. Keeping him warm. Skin to skin. Staying awake through most of the night. Calling in sick day after day to stay with Kitty. Emergency vet scheduling with them saying he probably won't make it. Kitty didn't make it. It's when my oldest cat slowly stalked up to the cat. Nudging her nose against Mortimer's head. Mortimer didn't move. Didn't react. Put him in a shoebox with his blanket. So he would not be cold. Buried him and left a little pebble for a tombstone. That was 20 years ago. I'm sorry. Mortimer. I couldn't save you. Edit. Whoa. I had absolutely no idea that this would blow up in such a significant way. Thank you. Everyone. I am doing my best to reply to each and every individual that commented. There are so many heart-wrenching stories to read. I find solace in knowing that there are so many internet strangers who also do their best to help the most vulnerable creatures we stumble upon in our lives. Thank you all. Once again. Be well. Be safe. The end of the Iron Giant. You stay. I go. No following. Watching Fox and the Hound. I was watching the part where she releases Todd with my 5-year-old daughter. Her with a catch on her voice asking why. Me explaining. Her in tears saying she'll take him. She'll take care of him. Now I cry. Every damn time. Land Before Time when his mother is giving him the speech. When he's shouting his mother. Oh man. My wedding song. My husband died in an accident a little over 3 years ago, only 5 months after we got married. All I need to hear is the first note of the song and the grief hits hard. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong. Goodbyes. Doesn't matter what kind. I'll always get teary-eyed. The episode of Scrubs when Dr. Cox's brother-in-law Ben dies. That is a gut punch. The scene in Saving Private Ryan when the medic gets shot and dies on the field with the rest of his group desperately trying to save him. The ending of The Pursuit of Happiness when he finally gets the job. The struggles leading up to that point makes me tear up all the time when they finally give him the position. I literally am physically incapable of reading this poem without shedding a tear. Semicolon. Comma, do not stand at my grave and weep, I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. Zuko and Iroh's reunion in the finale of Atla. Green Mile. When Miguel sings Remember Me for Mama Coco. My dog died right before I Am Legend came out. And I still have to hold back tears when watching that movie. Fathers who tell their children how proud they are of them. I told my son this yesterday. He's just gone 4 and has always hated anyone touching his hair. Screaming like a banshee, etc. Yesterday I took him to my local barber and he was initially nervous. I could see him tensing his neck. But he settled down quickly and let the guy go to work. Clippers. Scissors. He sat there for a good 20 minutes. At one point he exclaimed, "Daddy, I'm not scared anymore." I nearly melted with pride, so I bought him 3 massive toys afterwards. And he has, for the first time ever, a proper haircut. Mufasa's death in The Lion King. Also that scene in Interstellar where he sees those videos of his kids. That gets me sobbing like nothing else. Sometimes you just need a good cry. The ending of The Return of the King. As soon as I hear the Grey Havens music I get hit with a wave of emotion. Amos Diggory crying, that's my boy. Dying pets. Cats being dropped in the side of the road in a box or left in apartments as people moved out. Your Lion April. Seeing other people crying in emotional pain. Makes me sob every time. Edit. Whoa. Thank you for the awards. Dobby's death and the end of the Iron Giant. I read that as Dobby's death at the end of the Iron Giant. And I was like, what? What a ducked up crossover that would be. I'm a member of a 12-step program and in meetings we give out chips or keychains for different amounts of clean sober time. After giving out multiple years. 1 year. 6 months. etc. The meeting chair will ask if there's anyone new or coming back, relapsed and is returning to the program, who wants to take a 24-hour chip. When anyone gets up and takes their 24H chip, the room invariably gives them the loudest applause and cheers and welcomes them back. The whole room knows how much courage it takes to come back and how scary it can be to get up and walk to the front of the room for that chip. It's such a beautiful thing to see and it makes me cry every time. Doctor Who. The episode with Van Gogh. Ugh. Goodbye Dr. 10, I don't want to go. This thread apparently. But in all honesty I'm very emotional lately so it's no surprise. That scene in the David Attenborough documentary on Netflix, A Life on Our Planet. Or how about in Planet Earth II where the baby sea turtles mistake the city lights for the moonlight on the water and they go into the city where they're filmed being run over by cars and falling into storm drains? Or the frozen baby bison? Or the baby penguins who beg the cameraman to help them before they freeze to death? God damn it. Duck nature. See more. It's not your fault. Good Will Hunting. That's all I wanted to hear as a kid and growing up. My dog has been gone for over 25 years. But when I think of him, I still cry. Sometimes I even sob. Whenever my addict daughter gets arrested, 4 times in the last 2 weeks. Whenever I look at a picture of her. Whenever I remember a memory of her when she was little and she was still my angel. Whenever I try to think of something I could do to help her and realize that I've already done everything a parent can do. And it hasn't helped. I cry when it gets cold out. And wonder if she is stuck out the night somewhere. Cold and lonely. I cry when I look at her 8-year-old daughter. That my wife and I are raising. I cry a lot lately. Edit. Thank you for the platinum. The scene in the Lemis movie where Gavroche, the little boy, walks towards the army singing and is shot in the leg but keeps going. All while another character in the background, I think his brother, is screaming for him to come back. Then Gavroche is shot again, killing him before he can finish his song and the brother breaks free from the people holding him back and runs to Gavroche. Then he just holds him and just sobs. Also in that same movie, where, after the rebellion is over and the majority of the men are dead, the women in the street cleaning the blood singing the line children of the barricade who didn't last the night. Did you see them lying where they died? Someone used to cradle them and kiss them when they cried. Exclamation point. It just makes my cry. Every time. Remembering my son before he was diagnosed as autistic. Not being able to talk. But being so happy. There's a memory, and a video, of him dancing along to the ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast. And every time I think of it I cry. He just held his hands and span in a circle. My lovely little boy. The end of Coco. IDC how many times I watch it hits me every time. Whoa. Time Adventure. Hearing the Living Years. By Mike and the Mechanics. My dad is still alive and I hug him whenever I can. But man, this song hits me in the feels. Animals saving people. Something about watching an unexpected animal saving a human's life just makes me tear up. When Marshall finds out his dad died in How I Met Your Mother. Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin. Being alone. I live with my autistic son, and when he is with me, and not with his mother, I have literally no time or energy to think. When I am alone, my mind plays every future for him and I can't think a happy end. Someday he will lose me and his mother and will be alone in a daycare for people with special needs. And I read tons of articles and others how this all is for autistic people like him. It breaks my heart every time to think about him as an elderly person who has a broken heart but can't communicate it straight. I hope I will live long enough to outlive him. I am just 20 years older. My daughter's best friend died in a car crash a couple of years back. She was 18. She'd been coming to our house since she was 4 or 5. She'd become a part of our family. Even when her and my daughter would have the silly arguments kids have when they become teens and a bit more independent. She'd still make herself at home the next time she was round. She had a smile that lit up the room. When I think about the night she died, I cry. When I think back to the heartbroken faces of 8 teenagers that appeared at our house an hour after it happened, I cry. When I think about how her family must feel, I cry. When I think about how her death has impacted my daughter's life, I cry. When I think about how her life could have turned out, I cry. Even writing this, tears run down my face. The scene in Scrubs when it suddenly clicks that Ben died. It's like a sudden slam to the gut. It gets me every time. Watching my brother's muscular dystrophy slowly get worse and knowing he won't live a full life. When the musicians in Titanic stopped playing nearer to my god the after saying goodbyes and then joining together till the end. Something I read on Tumblr a few years ago. It goes something like this. On the day of the 9/11 attack, the schools were called off and teachers were waiting with the middle schoolers to be picked up by their parents to take them home. One student is left out and the teacher asks why her parents weren't there yet and she says they won't come because they were in the tower too. Makes me tear up every time I think of it. Thinking about losing my dog someday. I know it'll happen eventually, but you bow to no one. And then everyone bows before Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin. Dumbo's Mother's Baby Mind song. Especially with the animation. I had a personality disordered egg donor instead of a mum, so I tend to get a false nostalgia for really good parent figures, but that clip tears me apart every time. The thought of leaving my parrot behind. He's 8 years old. Average life expectancy for his breed is 60 years. He may well outlive me. The thought of me not being there anymore and him looking for me and wondering where I am makes me well up instantly. I well up whenever I've gone away just for one night and my friend house sits. On longer trips I hate the thought of him wondering if I'm coming back. How excited he is to see me when I do come back gets me too. This fear is what keeps me going though. I could never end my life because I could never leave him behind. My period. Edit. Thanks for the award. Homeward Inbound. Videos of kids who are passionate about. For example, Disney stories and go in costume to a park where the actors are fully engaged with the kid. Looking in the mirror. Vampires reading this. Onions. Somebody I love dying. Grave of the Fireflies. Last episode of MASH. Edit. My mother used to read me and my sister a book as kids. In the book the mother would hold her child and say, "I'll like forever, I'll love you for always, as long as I'm living my baby you'll be." In the end the son would pick up his elderly mother, rock her in his arms and sing the same tune to her, and my mom would always tear up and cry reading it while we were kids. I'm 30 now. And every time I think of the inevitable moment when I can pick up my elderly mother, rock her in my arms, and say those words, I always tear up. Even typing this has me tearing up more than I'd like to admit. Hearing about seeing children who are being abused. As a person who was emotionally abused in childhood, it absolutely breaks me to hear about children who are suffering. Although I'm not particularly fond of children, as sometimes their tantrums and rudeness can be irritating, I certainly believe that no child, no matter how badly behaved or not, deserves abuse. I sometimes just want to sweep them up into my arms and take them away from it and show them what love is. 2 things. That scene in the Green Mile, if you know, you know. Basically all of a monster calls. My name is Connor. Grave of the Fireflies. Studio Ghibli film. It is the only film that has made me distraught. The ending of Assassination Classroom. My mom yelling at me. It seems my brain automatically tells my body to start crying every time we're arguing. The Nuremberg Trials. When Forrest Gump talks with Jenny at her grave and leaves his son's letter. Anakin's turn to the dark side in rots. When you have watched it so many times you always wish it'd go differently, but it doesn't. And it always ends up with suffering. The end of Disney Pixar Inside Out. You Are My Sunshine. My grandma used to sing and whistle it to a cockatiel I got when I was around 9 years old. She really loved that bird. It's been 10 years, but for years after she died my cockatiel would sometimes just start whistling it. My cockatiel died after about 12 years. No idea what happened, but between the two of them I still choke up when I hear it. She was one of 2 last childhood I have. Through poverty, abuse and homelessness I don't really have any past comforts or materials. Much less good memories. My cat is 19-20 years old now and she is the last of it. Of course my heart is always open to help a new animal in the future, but I am not looking forward finally losing that last part of myself that actually has me attached to something. If that makes sense. Rudy. That scene from the mother-centric episode of How I Met Your Mother, S9, where she plays Love Iron Rose. Avatar Season 2 Episode 15. Sirius Black's death scene and not taking my antidepressants. Thinking about my daughter growing up and not having her brothers and sisters that we lost in our miscarriages. Finding an anime I like and finishing it within a few days of discovering it. Minecraft music. Jesse's story Toy Story 2. That scene in the Doctor Who episode Vincent and the Doctor. Ugh. The fact that corporations are killing our planet and that Earth may not be inhabitable as early as 20 years from now. The acknowledgement that I am really ducking lonely and crave love and affection. Thinking about my grandma. It's been 6 years since she died and I can't remember her voice anymore. She was my everything. Hope she is in a better place now.